Good morning. I'm Saini from the University of Canberra, and I'm with Michelle Grattan. After summer's break, we are back with our conversations. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning and belated Happy New Year.
Well, to you as well. I hope you had a good summer and Christmas break.
Indeed.
So we are meeting after quite a gap now, after summer, and a lot happened over the summer. You want to give us a bit of a summary how the summer has been in the political world?
Well, it hasn't been such a happy new year for Malcolm Turnbull and his government. He lost a minister in an entitlement scandal. He's got bad polling, and there's a lot of pressure on him to try and reconsolidate for the new year. And we've seen in Parliament a much more aggressive and upbeat Prime Minister as he tries to reset the political scene. And
the global scene hasn't been that friendly either, you know, with the election in the United States.
Well, and he had that phone call with the new president. Now, he said he was strong and he got that deal on the Americans taking the refugees preserved, bedded down, but nevertheless there was the publicity that he was essentially abused by Donald Trump.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting and challenging period for I think whole of the world.
And there's a lot of uncertainty, of course, about how the Trump regime will handle the region, and that's very important to Australia and how it'll handle China in particular.
Coming back home, the last week hasn't been very easy for the government, particularly for Scott Morrison and the omnibus bill. You want to tell us a little bit about what was in this bill that's causing so much difficulty?
The core of the bill is a reform package to shake up childcare, which will benefit lower and middle income families. But this has to be paid for, and the government wants to shave family tax payments to raise some money to do that. There are also other savings in this bill, the so-called zombie measures, many coming from the 2014 budget, so they're pretty old measures the government hasn't been able to get through. Now, to pass this bill, the government has to get crossbench support, and this week the Xenophon team said no, and that's a really bad blow for the government. We've seen a lot of talk about the fact that it might have to resort to tax increases to put the budget in better shape because it can't get these savings, but at the same time there's a lot of pressure on Nick Xenophon to see if a compromise, even at the very late stage, is possible, because he doesn't want the Xenophon team blamed for losing the childcare package.
Now, the increase in taxes, of course, one way the government could try to achieve those savings, well, not necessarily saving the balance in the budget. What other possibilities do you see in the hands of the government to try to achieve those savings?
Well, it may be able to salvage some of this bill. The Xenophon team has already said it's willing to pass a number of smaller items, but maybe through negotiations there can be something better achieved. Otherwise, there are possible other savings. Now, Nick Xenophon has talked about waste in the defence area, and he's also talked about a small increase in the Medicare levy for high income earners. But really achieving savings is very, very difficult for the government, because there are almost always losers and they're very vocal, and of course the government, being behind in the polls, doesn't want to alienate any more people than it's already alienated.
Another area which has been in the news constantly, that is the energy issues and the policies on energy. And the government has been touting this idea of clean coal technologies as part of the energy mix in Australia. What are your thoughts on that?
The government is trying to use this policy area as a sort of bludgeon against Labor, and it got some ammunition from the blackout in South Australia last year, and of course there's been a problem with energy supply in South Australia this year too, and so the government's gone on an unrelenting attack against Labor. But its problem, the government's problem, is that it's got to have a policy itself, and at this stage it doesn't have a coherent policy. Malcolm Turnbull has raised the question of possible clean coal plants to replace generators that are ending their life or nearing the end of their life, but this would require some sort of government help, and anyway investors are very reluctant to go down the coal route these days, clean or not. Another area is gas, but there are state restrictions on gas extraction, and that would require a good deal of negotiation, more compensation to farmers, and really convincing the public that that was a good course. So at present we have a bit of a void in government policy, but we have a hyper-partisan attitude to the whole debate. And this week we saw a number of groups, 18 groups across the spectrum, from energy suppliers and users to welfare and conservation groups, saying, please, please, can we have a bit more bipartisanship? But the politicians weren't in the market for that.
That's what politics is, I guess, yeah. Now, the Prime Minister gave his Closing the Gap update this week. Are we really closing the gap? How are we doing on that one?
Not very well, essentially. We're not on track to meet most of the targets that have been set by state and federal governments. Obviously, some progress has been made, and Malcolm Turnbull did concentrate on some upbeat stories and success stories, which is very appropriate. However, it's obvious that more needs to be done, and this, I think, is not primarily a question of money. It's a question of trying to find the right pathways for the Indigenous communities to be moved forward, to address disadvantage, to get more hope than they have at the moment. So it's a mixed picture, but the bottom line is we need to be doing a lot better, a lot faster.
It's going to be a few interesting months to watch ahead, yeah.
Indeed.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much as always. It's been very enlightening.
Thank you, Deep.